Hello, everybody. It's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that must mean it's time for another episode of Warhammer Weekly. Joining me, as always, my own little hidden gem, it's Tom. How you doing, Tom?
Hello, friends. Yes, folks,
You are.
hold on, Vince. Yes,
Go ahead.
folks, it is going to be one of those weeks with Vince on the road and terrible audio. I'm going to say it because you may not be able to hear him.
I will do my best.
Hold on, Vince.
Also joining us from down under, it's Mr. Doom and Darkness. How you doing, sir?
G'day, mate. How you going?
Way to lead into it, buddy. I love it. So we are going to talk today about hidden gems and sort of, shall we call them overlooked, underappreciated units, right? Does that sound good?
Yeah, I think that's probably pretty accurate.
Yeah, and I think we've got a pretty good list of interesting options to talk through. Hopefully we can uncover from the ore some hidden gems, but of course, first, some news. So, Tom, take it away, buddy.
Yeah, so I guess I should probably just open that window because Vince is going to be useless this week.
Correct.
Here we go. Bow! There it is. Rumor engine.
Yes, we
For
understood.
those of you who don't know what that is. So what is that rumor engine? Other than a curve, like your mother's drapery. Like I can hear Iron Man critiquing Thor right now in the first Avengers film.
Mm-hmm. A cloak? A banner? I don't know.
Yeah. I would say it looks more like a banner than a cloak, right?
Something that has had the rest of it photoshopped out.
Right. Like, but you can see that it's hanging here and hanging here. You have two contact points with draping.
Mm-hmm.
This looks like a banner.
It does feel more like a banner than a cloak.
Do?
Yeah. It kind of reminds me a little bit of, well, the banner, I think, is the easy guess. And the more far-fetched guess is it's something to do with vampires. And it reminds me of some of the cloth that sort of hangs off the, Neferata or off the, something that might fit with a coven throne type thing or something draped. So, yeah, I think it's death-related. And I don't think it's a banner. I actually think it's something that's hanging off another object.
Yeah, I can see that, like a coven throne type thing.
I agree.
It could be anything, but it's something death. It could be, it's hanging off something else that's death orientated.
Updated black coach. It is. It's not black coach itself. It's the new version.
Just ignore Vince right now, folks. I know you can't hear him. What he's saying is not of any significance. Okay, we're gonna move on. Next item. So we have this little photo. This is a leak. Although let me just say this is not a leak. This was an intentional plant by Mini Wargaming. They were doing like a painting thing, and then just happenly on the desk is BAM! Maybe the new Beast of Nurgle is what we're looking at there, probably.
It's definitely the new Beast of Nurgle.
So, new Beast of Nurgle. You saw it leaked from Mini Wargaming first. This will be the last time they get any exclusive material if it wasn't intentional.
It certainly was. Yeah, I mean, it matches the art, right? It matches the art that we had seen previously.
Yep. It does. It does. You can see like the mouth and the belly, and then also like down here, you see the eyes, like the eyes, mouth, tongue hanging out, and then the mouth and the belly, which is what we had seen, and then the very stereotypical like tentacle hair.
Yeah, well, there was a piece of art that had these eyes.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. In addition to previous rumor engines, right?
Indeed. Indeed.
Hopefully I'm coming through better now.
No, you're not. It's okay, though. Moving on. So we've been calling out for the last month or so the coming of Deathcast Eternals. Again, it was complete conjecture. Like, obviously, like they've been seeding the story for a while. This is not too surprising, but we've been suggesting that that's the direction they're going to go rather than like a chaos horse heresy thing. They're going to go with like a death thing. Even a thread popped up this last week on TGA, and I made an observation actually when I was flipping through my new White Dwarf, and I saw this on the bottom of the new Lord Celestin, and it was part of the timeline, and it was the last data point on that timeline, which was a low point for Stormcast Eternals, the price of immortality. As the Sigmar's Crusade stretched across mortal realms, more and more of these Stormcast Eternals are reforged. Some fear that undergoing this process too many times risks becoming something else entirely, ... Folks, it's coming. So, I thought, wow, this was a great grab. And then somebody raised me one and pointed out in the text above these two things. One, they make a comment that you can never have enough Stormcast Eternal heroes, which I thought was really funny. Like, if they do have another faction coming of death, like, this could be a subtle kind of, like, snark. And then up top, it says, Steelheart fights his battles without need of helm, typical Stormcast Eternal at battle helm. He prefers to face the multifarious foes of order without such things constricting his view. Oh, never mind. I understand. They were reading that of there as the foes themselves being order, as opposed to, I understand what the reading mistake they made there. Never mind. So that is less interesting than the subtle jab of like, hey, there may be more Stormcast Eternals heroes coming. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think that these are we just reading tea leaves here, or do we think that there's actually another release coming? I mean, it has been almost a year.
I think you're reading tea leaves. I think, okay. But there certainly is more Stormcast Eternals releases coming. That's beyond a doubt, I think. Yeah, but I wouldn't read too much into it.
I mean, but look at this text. Come on, this is where they leave us at the end of the year.
in the Realm Gates Wars as well, when they talk about the Stormcast dying eternally, and they talk about, I think his name's Baraka or Brackus. He's the Liberator, which has died the most of any Stormcast, and now he's just an unspeaking, sad, sentient being who accepts his role in life. And I think the last scene in one of the books is him holding the pass by himself, where everyone flees, and he's sort of standing on a pyramid of undead that he's just slain, with a knowing acceptance of what's to come. But he can't express it, and everyone is quite morbid, like just afraid of him and what he's become, and they look at him, and it's terrible. And I mean, I don't know, what's the point from there? Maybe it's Death Stormcast. I hope it is, along with Dwarf Cast and Lizard Cast and every other cast that we could possibly do. Orc Cast, we've already got them Stormjaws, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
Vince, still think Deathcast?
He's muted himself.
Oh, he has muted himself.
Yes, I do think still. I do think cast. Is that okay?
No, you can go back to muting yourself. So the other thing that just came out this last week is David Geimer's God's Gift. In the Advent calendar. There's a really interesting quote from this short story, and I want to read it real quick. This is one of the Stormcasts, and he says, "I do not dream." This is where he's like, reflecting on his own kind of internal monologue. He says, "I do not dream. Sometimes I think it another mortal impurity beaten out of me on the anvil of apotheosis. But I know others who speak of their dreams, and it is true that I used to dream. It was not so very long ago that I would close my eyes in dread of reprising my dying moments under the claws of the abyssal Ashir Gorath another night. Though I must remind myself that it's been 100 years since the Realmgate Wars raged over Gur." Okay, so now we're 100 years in the future from the Realmgate Wars. Like, we have a solid timeline, like a pin in the map that's been placed on this most recent short story.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was interesting. Like, we have, not only do we have an advancing timeline, we actually have a scale that is developing. Where we know, because before it was like decades after with the founding of those cities, those free cities, and now we're an entire century in the future. So I just thought that was interesting. Like, that data being sprinkled throughout the lore, I thought it was worth noting, because clearly most people aren't going to read those texts.
Can I ask you what you actually think Deathcast are going to be? I know it's sort of tinfoil hat, and it's probably too early in the show, but like, do you think they're just going to be painted black Stormcast with a skull shield, or do you think they're going to be, skeletal and heavy armor, or do you think they're going to be something completely different and look like Morghast Dark Eye or something like that. Like, what do you think the Deathcasts are actually going to be?
I think that we are going to get, if it were me, if I were to take a guess, I think that it will be. I don't think they're going to be painted black. I think they're going to be the Anvils of Heldenhammer. Let me open with that. That is if you look through the chapters, that is the chapter that is already in black armor. And they're the ones that are the farthest along, heroes from an ancient age. So they're the old world heroes. And they're the ones that have like the more regimented fighting style. I think they are who we will lose. If I were to take a chamber, we will lose that chamber. They're already black. I think that you're going to get you'll get new skulls, but I think that they will stay close enough to the actual Stormcast that you'll be able to do conversions. And I think that we'll probably have a lot of like ghostly indirect lighting. Some people talked about like having this like spirits come out of them, much like the spirits that you find in the rest of like the Nagash stuff, the wispy stuff, like so they could have like some of those vapors seeping out or like crawling at their feet, or you could go a whole bunch of different directions. But I think that it will. I think that it will maintain a lot of the iconography, if I were guessing. Not unlike how Chaos, like Corrupted Horse Heresy stuff, those Marines, like Thousand Suns, still look like Space Marines to some degree. Does that make sense? I think they will feel like Stormcast. I don't think we're going to get a bunch of skeletal heads. I don't think that we're going to get I think that they're going to feel like that. And I think the lore here will be that I think that the heresy, if I were to take a guess, if I were writing it, the heresy is actually on Sigmar's part. And what I mean by that is that he probably struck a deal with Nagash in the crafting of the original Stormcast. And he has not come through on his part of the deal. That he is actually, I think that he has actually shorted Nagash in the deal. And now Nagash is taking his actual rightful due.
Well, in the books, Nagash is so pissed at him, and that's why he didn't show up at the All Gates, because Sigmar's denying him his souls. Every time they reforge, he's stealing Nagash's property. And that's sort of when they confront him to try and get him to come back. That's as much as he says as well. He says, you're all stolen souls, every one of you.
Indeed, and I think that's where we're going. I think that it will be that they will be more soul now than actual reforged. It'll be something along those lines where we will hit a tipping point where he will gain control of them, or some of them.
See, as opposed to this sort of where it reads that effectively you can only be reforged so many times, and then once you reforge X amount, something happens and they become Deathcast. I always thought it would be more that Nagash has a way of killing Stormcast and stopping them returning, trapping them, and then becoming Deathcast. Perhaps he could use Shadespire or something. Yeah.
So there are a lot of different ways. Like he could be utilizing. So we've had the plot point of Shadespire, like the Shade Glass. Having been introduced. So that's been introduced, that concept. It could be something where Nagash utilizes the technology of Shade Glass to if Stormcast are slain with Shade Glass weapons or something, then they become like their souls become captured and they can't actually reforge or something, and then he reforges them into his own image, or it could go something along that route as well, and maybe bone armor instead of the standard Sigmarite, or who knows.
Again, can you hear me okay? By the way,
yes, Vince,
you're good.
100 times better.
All right, so this is on my phone. I swear to God, this is what we've come to. So there you go.
What did I tell you to?
Going the doom and darkness route. So sorry if this video is a little worse or better or whatever. Here we are.
It's 100 times better.
Hey, there you go.
100 times better.
Great.
Yep.
Great. Okay,
so now Vince can pull us back on the track.
So anyway, yes, I agree with that. I was listening still the whole time, and I agree with everything you said on Deathcast. But it's here's what I'll say. I think you're right, Tom, to a point. I think they'll have some continuity with the look, right? So you mentioned like Chaos Space Marines versus normal Space Marines, yeah?
Yep.
At the same time, I think if they really want this to be interesting, they've got to have a much broader deviation across the line. Stormcast don't have the traction Space Marines do. Space Marines are just the thing.
But we're going that way, though. That's right. That seems like that's where we're going.
Yes, my point is that I don't disagree. I think Deathcast are going to be a thing. my point is different. Okay,
No,
my
I'm saying
point
the
is
differentiation of the storm host. Like, I think that's actually the trajectory that we're going.
it's not far enough, is what I'm saying. Just if they look like Stormcast, it's not far enough.
Okay.
Because Stormcast don't have the traction in popular culture that the Space Marines do.
Sure, and that's fair.
I saw 5 different threads today on the 40K board arguing about whether or not Dark Angels are heretics. Okay, they got started today.
That's amazing.
Okay, that is internet traction. All right, that's
Sure.
people caring. It's not the same thing for Stormcast. There weren't 5 threads today about whether or not we're going to get Fallen Stormcast. Okay,
Sure.
it's just a difference in magnitude here. So there you go. All right. Now that I'm back, hi. Did we have any other news?
No, I don't have anything.
All right. It was again not a huge news week, but hey, whatever. So shall we move to some pick of the week?
Sure.
And of course, put Mr. Doom on the spot. Doom, what's your pick, buddy?
Oh, I think it goes back 2 weeks now, so I hope I'm allowed to do that. But it was Garage Hammer's review of The Plague Garden, the new novel that came out. I think that novel is probably the most significant novel to come out in the Age of Sigmar realm. And they reviewed it very thoroughly. And I hate to say this because, but if you listen to that, you really probably don't need to go and get the book. But it's a fantastic story. They do a fantastic review of it. And I had highly hoped that from that was setting up the next Nurgle release, which was going to be Nurgleized Bretonia, and it was going to be Nurgle Knights, and it was going to be glorious, and I was going to be so happy. And now I've seen some weird, stupid, tentacle-looking beast, and I'm not happy.
Amen.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure Bretonia, by the way, already did come back. Just so you know, it's called Flesh Eater Quartz.
Yeah, they're ghouls.
Yeah, it's Flesh Eater Quartz.
Yeah.
Go read their allegiance abilities.
Yeah.
I'm sure we're all not thrilled about that, but it's the case. So, sorry.
Yeah, how far they've fallen.
All right. So, Tommy, what about you, buddy? What's your pick of the week, man?
Ozhammer, friend of the shows. They just did today their second list competition thing. I faced off against Paul Conti and crushed him in the first one. And I had the opportunity to nominate the next person, and so I nominated Nico from of TGA and all of the interwebs, a wonderful list builder. And so Nico came on today with a Zinch list, throwing down with some of another. I haven't seen the other person, but they are one of the Australian, one of your people, Doom. And so, it'll be interesting. I would highly encourage you guys to check out Ozhammer and that new show they just did.
So we just assume now that basically Doom, anybody from Australia is one of Doom's people. There you go.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I highly recommend everyone goes and subscribes to Ozhammer as well, because the thing about they've really hit it with gusto and dedication, and I think they've really committed to doing this and making it work. So I think go over there and give them a sub and get in early, because they're only going to grow and get better.
Totally agree. All right. So my pick of the week. I will actually pimp out Tom here. How about that? I'm going to recommend something Tom was in, which is Paul Cunard had Tom on the show on his channel, and you guys had a little discussion. Do you want to talk about kind of what you were talking? And I think this is actually a very useful thing, especially for sort of people who are looking to, how do I want to say this? Like, be a little more competitive or start attending tournaments or are interested in that angle of the game. So,
yeah, it was simply, I mean, the long and short of it, it was list building. How to build a competitive list.
let me back you up there real quick. I don't want to jump back in, but I'm going to, because it wasn't list building in the action of the thing. It was list building the meta of how, right?
Yes.
Like the sort of thoughts that you go through when you're constructing a list.
Yeah. So like how to analyze a unit to see how it fits into the larger whole, to look at its strengths and weaknesses, how to then look at how to analyze a battalion in light of like one of his questions is like, how do you know which battalions are good and which ones aren't? And so what I talked about was like, you don't look at those things in isolation. You look at those things in lists because it's only in context. Do they gain value? It only depends on what they can actually fit into the list. So an example of this, by the way, to give a very brief example, is the Blades of Corn book. Okay. Their Blades of Corn have been doing really well with a non-murder host Blades of Corn, actually, surprisingly. And it's won a tournament here in Ohio, in Northern Ohio, this last weekend, and I believe it. And what it is it is a 2-drop Gore Pilgrims. What's the riders? The Blood Crushers.
You talking about Skull Crushers?
Skull Crushers. What's their battalion? The riding one.
Gore Stampede or something like that.
Yeah, Brass Stampede. Doom,
Stampede.
If that phone keeps going, I'm going to reach through the computer and find the person in your office.
I'm not in my office, Vince. What are you talking about?
In your house.
Right.
But my point being that like Brass Stampede is good, but what actually makes it good is the fact that all those units are they're basically all pigs. We've talked about how good pigs are now. Each one of those Skull Crushers the Mighty Skull Crushers are 140 points for 15 wounds, 4-up save. In this battalion, you get 7 of them with the general that you want for the army already, and they all do mortal wounds now, not only on the charge, but also now they do mortal wounds just in the hero phase, just by being near units. And so they're pigs that spit out mortal wounds to everything near them every turn. And so suddenly, like, the battalion's good, but it's the fact that because of its cost, the cost of the units inside of it, and the fact that you can fit Gore Pilgrims in, like all of those things. So the main support battalion, you have now an offensive core battalion. It's all of those things together that make a very viable list. Alone, sure. It may not, like the contrast to this is the Skull Reaper, like the Skull Tribe, whatever, like the one with all the other chaos lists. Like I've been trying to make that list work. And the problem is because what you have to put in it, it just doesn't, I can't get it to work because of the numbers.
Right.
Like you don't have enough bodies or you don't have enough whatever in those different instances. And so there's always a hole in the list somewhere.
So if you want to see more long-winded rants like that
sure.
about thoughts on how to build a list, check out this video. I'll link it down below. Yeah. All right. No problem,
that was a good show, Tom. The army I've got at the moment, I'm planning to take to tournaments. I built specifically discarding all of the advice that you gave. So when I sat back and listened to it, like I intentionally thought this is what everyone else is doing, so I'm going to do the opposite. And then when I sat there and I listened to your and Paul's video, I just thought to myself, my God, I've built a disaster. It's going to be the worst thing in the world. So we'll wait and see. But
well, hey, God. You can build very bad lists and still do well with them. Vince is an example of this.
Thanks, man. I do build only bad lists. Like, it's true. There you go. All right, so let's go to some hobby time. Doom, man, what's been on your desk? I haven't seen you mentioning what you're painting lately or anything like that. I listened to your last sit and talk where you talked about some of the struggles you were having with painting.
No, it's trying to get together my CanCon tournament list is the big thing. So I've just finished my Vanguard. I'm currently doing my battle line units, so 2 little units of Ungors. They're being rebased. That's always a pain. And I've just got to finish off my bow in Vortex. And I feel so dirty already just saying that word. And no, that's it. But I finished my Jabberslaith, and that's the most important thing. And I feel proud that I've taken the Gaunt Summoner out of my list, out of my army, and replaced him with a Jabberslaith. I think that's what everyone out there should be doing right now.
Well, we've touched on so many units already that are hidden gems that I think are going to come up again later. So I'm excited about that.
Sorry.
Tommy, you're fine. We're just sprinkling them in. This is good planning. These are all Chekhov's guns for later in the show. Tommy, what about you, buddy? What are you
talking? I need to finish this math real quick. Hold on.
Okay, you finish your math, Tom. I'll talk about my hobby time. Yeah, so I finished up my cowgirl that I had shared last week. I was very happy with how she came out. And so now I needed a little fun piece. It's a funny comment or funny thing to say, yes. But so now I'm working on my my Ordo Malus, or however you say it, Inquisitor and Terminator armor ally for my Sisters of Battle. Yes, there you go. So I'm painting a Terminator. That's the long and short of it. Like a girl Terminator to be with the Sisters of Battle. So that's what I'm working on. And she's back at home on my desk.
Are you actually playing a lot of 40K at the moment, or are you just hobbying on it?
No, at the moment, the last time I played a game was, I don't know, a couple months back, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I like it though. It's a lot of fun. We've been really into AOS lately, so all our weekend games have been AOS.
Yeah.
Which is fine. It gives me time to just like work this army and hobby on it. I really like painting the figures. So, and it's good that there's no pressure. You know what I mean? Like I don't have to feel like I'm getting a list done for anything. So when I want to sort of have a palette cleanser of something, I just pick a model I've wanted to do for 40K and do it. And it pushes me in different directions because I get to use different techniques. I should also state that the real hobby time of what's going on right now, back in my neck of the woods, like obviously I'm in a hotel right now on the road, is I'm redoing my office, my whole basement. So like this involves IKEA and all sorts of weird Swedish words I can't pronounce, and just like a lot of pulling crap out that has just been stuffed up. I realized, so here's the thing that happened. I realized that I had accumulated a weird number of like clam pack models. You understand what I mean? Like models in clam packs.
Sure.
Like through no intention of my own. I didn't like.
I didn't want them.
I didn't want them. Most of them I didn't buy. That is to say, they're just stuff that like either I got in con bags or for tournament prizes or something like that. So I actually put into my like new storage area. I actually went out and got pegboard and bought like and then bought like the hooks. So now I can display them like a store wall, and I have them all hung. So that way I can walk in and be like, which one shall I paint today? And look at my nice little clam pack wall.
I need some of that.
Kind of thing.
I need some storage shelves in my house.
It's pretty sweet, dude. Let me just say, and it isn't expensive. You can get like Home Depot sells like the pegboard stuff.
Yeah.
For like $8. You can get a big old piece of pegboard for like $8, and the little kit to hang it is like $4. So, and that comes with the hooks. So I mean, all in all, it's a pretty cheap thing to do a nice little setup. There you go. That's my hobby time.
Okay. So I've been painting an ironclad.
Yep.
And Vince, you're going to say, Tom, you've been painting that ironclad for weeks. And I have. I'm enjoying it, and it's fun. I just got done with my first round of rivets.
Okay.
So we're going to take a poll. How many rivets do you all think is on the ironclad, the crew, and everything associated with the ironclad? Like all the bits and pieces that go on it.
Do we get to guess as well? Do Doom and I get to guess as well?
Yes. I'm inviting you all to guess.
Okay.
To guess how many rivets.
Rivets.
Right?
How many rivets? How many little nuts, or like the top of screws or whatever, of rivets that need to be highlighted and painted and detailed?
You go first, Vince.
345.
I feel like it's 443.
You?
The person who guesses $1, by the way, or whatever in the comments, kudos to you. So anyways, go ahead.
So none of you are even in the right ballpark.
Okay.
Right, it's 2,000, isn't it?
2,732.
That's exactly what I was going to say. And Vince made me second guess myself.
2,732.
And you have to paint one of them gold.
Just one.
Yeah, just one.
Find the golden rivet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That is the rivet. That's the engines. That's on what's like all the bolts that are on like the bombs that are hanging off the ship. That's like all of that. That's on everything.
Wow.
Over 2,700, and I've
Well,
finished the first round of touching all those. Now I have to wash all of them and highlight all of them. That's the next step. 2,700.
Sounds like a good job for Vince.
That's exactly right. Hey, Vince, I have some commission work for you.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
That's a hard pass on that right there.
Yeah.
So you still want to do that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to do that dual. Yes. But keep in mind, given the state that the ship will be in my dual piece, I will
Yes.
have a much lower number of rivets to worry about.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I'm chiding Vince on a dual piece that he wants to paint for a competition. Yes.
For the inevitable return of Golden Demon to the United States, or if it doesn't, like if I don't get a formal announcement, I'm just going to go to the UK, like and compete there, like either probably to the main Warhammer Fest, because I think the AOS one they laid out the schedule, and I think the AOS one is in March. So like the idea of flying to the UK and then coming back and then going to Adepticon would be pretty challenging. So
Hard pass.
I mean, whatever.
Okay. So I'm gonna start washing some bolts. You guys can do whatever you want.
Sure. Sounds good. All right. So that being said, let's turn to our feature segment. So let's talk about some hidden gems and some undervalued, underappreciated units. Okay. So I think in general, what we're going to look at here is there's a lot of units. Some of these might be more competitive than their points would say. Some of these might be just actually really good when placed in the right army. Some of these might be filling holes in larger forces, or when used with certain force dispositions, like in their normal force, they're kind of crap, but if you play generic order, they can actually be really good, or something like that, right? Yeah. Some of these get really good with certain synergies or in certain battalion situations or whatever. Like there's lots of different circumstances that can take these things that are normally on paper average, right? Because that's the idea here. When you just read them and you go, who cares? Like, or that's okay, or something like that, or you probably don't even think about them. You made a decision about these a long time ago, and you kind of haven't looked back. But these could be very viable, competitive, interesting units to put on the table, right? So that's kind of the idea of the thing, right? All right, so Mr. Doom, you're the guest, buddy. You get the blessing and the curse. You get to give we're just going to round robin this. Just cycle through. We're each going to pick one, talk about them, why we like them, where we think they belong, where they're good, why, blah, 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 blah. You first, brother.
All right. My first one is a leader, and it's a Chaos Dwarf, and it's the Demon Smith.
Yep.
He's a 100-point wizard. He's got an automatic D3 wound mechanism that he can do at short range. But the big thing is his spell is -2 that you choose an enemy unit, and that unit is -2 to hit in the shooting phase for the rest of the turn. So in a meta, and I hate that word, that with so much shooting, skyfires, and cunning rucks, and all this kind of crap, just having the ability to reach out to that big mass unit of 9 skyfires and say you're -2 to hit from now on in. If you can get it off and you don't get dispelled by the Mega Zench cheese, then I think that's pretty valuable. So 100 points, and when he's not doing that, he can still Mystic Shield, Arcane Bolt, and he adds bonuses onto Magma Cannons as well. So I think, I think he's a good option just to throw in there. And even if he's only worked, say 3 or 4 out of 6 games, I think that's still worthwhile.
Do you happen to know off the top of your head the range of his spell?
It's 20 inches, right?
It is. It's 20 inches, which is even better than most of your standard spells at 18.
Yep. And then I'm going to put him up at a Bowing Vortex and just say, you're all fucked. Excuse my language.
You're Australian. It's okay.
Yeah, it's
sorry, guys.
Different. Oh, you're fine. So I don't remember off the top of my head who has ally with the Chaos
Nobody.
Dwarfs. Like
nobody. Nope.
Well,
Nope.
Everchosen does, right?
Technically Everchosen, but in order to do that, you have to be like that's misleading. Let me just say the that is a head fake, because you have to get all your battle line then from Everchosen.
Sure.
So you have to be running You have to run 900 points of Vanguard to make that work, and then your general has to either be a Gaunt Summoner or Archeon, which means that suddenly you're at 1,600 points.
Oh yeah.
Like, let's be very clear, that's a head fake.
Yeah, but you're also the coolest dude in school.
That is
you are.
true.
And by the way, let me just, as an aside, technically, if you did in a battalion, those guys come into faction. Anything's in the battalion, so you may be able to cheat battle line that way. Although people would get angry at me for even suggesting that.
Gotcha. So the point is that I think in general we're saying generic chaos allegiance. This dude's a great ad in a generic chaos allegiance.
Yep.
Yeah, that spell, man, that is a backbreaker on a lot of units. Like -2 to hit and shooting. My God. Like, even to highly...
My Arcanaut company, not real happy about that.
No, exactly. Like, things like KO going suddenly to hitting on 5s and 6s in a lot of cases, that's not scary anymore. A unit of handgunners you're about to charge, like a big, giant 30 block of handgunners with that -2 on there. Is it only in the shooting phase, or is it just shooting, period?
It's just shooting, just the shooting. Oh, yeah, good call. I'll have to check that.
I will pull it up. Hold on, I have it right here.
Because that could be a real interesting sort of challenge. Although, let me point out, if it's...
Shooting hit rolls. That's
awesome.
it.
Okay, great.
So it's always at that penalty.
Let me point out, if you're about to put like a Vermin Lord Deceiver, or like if you've got a Vermin Lord Deceiver prowling around, that guy is now immune to shooting from that unit because he's just negative all the numbers on the dice. He cannot be shot anymore.
He's also in my list with Cunning Deceiver.
Yeah.
You can see the angle I'm going for here.
I can. You don't get to play with that unit. I see it now.
Yeah.
That unit is -5 in the first round to shoot the Vermin Lord Deceiver. Seems like a crippling penalty. -5.
I think we can do it, boss.
Yeah.
They're not even pointing their guns in the right direction at that point.
Yeah.
Like, they're literally just facing the opposite direction and firing to represent -5. Oh, that's amazing. Okay, I like that a lot. That's great. That is a hot pick. 100 points. You know, what's funny is, by the by, I just recently saw like a super awesome conversion on Twitter of a Demon Smith out of the Arcanaut Admiral. Or whatever, like you're the KO Admiral. It was a beautiful paint job. They just took the existing like Admiral guy and kind of added some chaos elements to him, and it like the paint job was dark, and you know that sort of black iron, and it looked great.
Well, just to add a little bit more value onto him, he's actually really quite affordable as far as it comes from Forge World models. So if you buy him, he's one of the cheapest things you can buy, but they actually come 3 in a box. So you not just buy one character, you get 3 of them, and it's really good bang for buck.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
it's 3 character hero models literally for the price of one normal GW model from Forge World.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
The Chaos Dwarves from Forge World just became, by the way, like normally priced for because it's like, you know, because of the conversion rates, you're paying like $50 for a box of 10-foot troops. Okay, that's pretty normal GW prices, folks. You know, and then the heroes are 3 for like $25 or something.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah,
I was not aware of that. That's a good hot tip right there.
There's a buying tip for you.
There you go. And I think with cons and stuff, if Forge World's going to be there, like at Adepticon, you can order it and then they'll actually bring it to you at the convention, right? Like if you order it in a certain period beforehand. So you can dodge the shipping.
Yeah, I found the shipping wasn't actually that much, and it also arrived in about 8 days. So that's I can't complain. I'm certainly not spruiking Forge World here, but no, they did a good job on that product for sure.
Or you can just spend 250, British pounds and get free shipping.
Oh, is that all?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
just buy an army. You just buy the army, and all of it comes free.
Just buy the army. What's the matter with you? Of course.
Yeah.
All right, Tom. What's your first pick, buddy?
Oh, I have so many of these. Let's do
one.
I want to do the. I'm going to take your Lord of Chaos and Demonic Mount.
Yeah, sure.
So this dude is He's 140 points, just a solid all-around hero. He has a ton of wounds. I'm pulling up his war scroll real quick. He's fairly defensible. He has a good for Slaves of Darkness. If you're doing any of like the Ever-Chosen battalions, he's a great hero for that. But he really shines in Tzeentch.
Yep.
Because what he gains the ability to do.
So I know the basic numbers of him off the top of my head. He's a 7 wound hero with a 10-inch move. Yes, he's on a base 4-up save, but he has the 5/6 mortal wound protection of all the chaos units from the chaos shield. So he's got he's got pretty good attack. He's got a decent enough attack profile that gets actually really good when you put him into a Tzeentch Fatesworn. Like in Tzeentch is where this guy shines because he can become part of Fatesworn.
Yep.
And he suddenly rerolls all failed saves.
Yes.
Right. Automatically.
Yep. So he rerolls all failed saves. His mount goes to neg 1 rend. His hammer, if you take the phantom one, the like phantasmal weapons, goes to neg 2 rend.
Yep.
So he can actually beat some face. He's going to ignore spells on a mortal wounds on a 5-up, which is pretty solid. And then his ability is actually adding +1 to reroll charge rolls and adding +1 to hit in the combat phase for Chaos Knights, Chariots, and Gorbeast Chariots. Why this is significant is because, especially, I'm pointing at Fatesworn again. You could easily have Sail outside the battalion, but teleporting like Knights onto your 9-inch line. So you're going to give them reroll charges, and then +1 to hit, and they're all going to be neg 1 rend on all their attacks because of the actual battalion. And on top of all that, Gorbeast Chariots actually gain utility. This is the side bonus one in Tzeentch because you can guarantee their mortal wounds on the charge with the Tzeentch Fate dice.
Yep.
So, and not have to waste ones and 6s for that.
You can use your mid-range dice and still get it out of there.
Yeah. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Gives you a point for like things like 4s, right? Which you don't often have as much of a use for. And that guy as well is like, he has aces in Duality of Death between built-in mortal wound protection and just a really easy, like it's so easy to put that guy on 2-up. Because again, he's not a monster, he's not a behemoth, right? He can just, if you get him near cover and like that, he can just fall to a 2-up like nothing. So he can be a 2-up rerollable with very little work. If he's near an objective in Duality, he can be a very, very hard dude to remove, and he's got more than the 5 wounds. So when he starts healing from the turn number and whatever, he's just a tough guy to kill, who also can be pretty offensive. I love him normally. I love him 10 times as much in Fatesworn.
Yep. So that's my underrated model.
No, I agree. I think he's a solid pick, and at 140, I don't feel like he's overcosted. I don't feel like he's too much. I feel like he's pretty much where he should be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just think that, again, with those synergies, he starts punching above his weight. Right?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. All right. So here's my first pick. Night Runners. Okay? Now, hear me out. First of all, the models are terrible. It's because the only models that exist right now are old, like, monkey face Skaven.
Yep.
Yeah, which are just terrible. That being said, they're easy enough to convert from just like generic Island of Blood clan rats, or use things out of the Blood Bowl team, or my suspicion is you'll be able to use some of the Shadespire crew when they come out. Whatever. Make them in any way you want, or just use the old monkey face guys. I don't care. Fine. Okay. These dudes are why I love them. So you get 10 for 100, but they also have a massive unit discount at 360 for 40. Now, I don't know if you'd ever actually use the massive unit thing. I'm just stating it to give the full picture. The reason I like them, especially in sort of a generic chaos, actually, is twofold. First off, they have a Vanguard move. So they have a 7-inch base move, which is quite fast for a foot troop, right? And before the game begins, they get to move. And they can run during that pre-game move. So they move an average of 10 inches before the game starts, right? So they can get out there, string out. It's the same thing we talked about with 3 people with the hunters, right?
Yep.
They can zone people out. They can prevent people from dropping near objectives. They can prevent you from getting slammed by a murder host, turn 1 or whatever, like all of this good stuff. They can just generally get in the way. They also have a ranged attack, Not a good one, but they have one. Okay.
Yep.
In melee, they have a very funny ability that in melee, if there's like, if you ever did take a big unit of them, it would be really hilarious to see what you could actually accomplish with them, because like when they roll a 6, I don't remember if it's hit or wound, but one of them, I can't use my phone right now because that's what's doing this. But it's they go to like -2 rend.
Oh, nice.
If you have 20 or more, they're just -1 rend automatically. And then when you roll the 6, they go to -2 rend. An interesting sort of thing that you wouldn't expect out of that unit to have a -2 rend option. Again, it's a trigger thing, so it doesn't happen all the time. So they have a little bit of range attack, and by the way, they can also run and shoot. So these little dudes can just be like, whatever doesn't get killed, right, when they get slammed into, you're just going to retreat, right? And then you're just going to run away and chaff somewhere else, right? Like these guys are just constant chaff runners, shooters. You pick off what you can. Chaos doesn't tend to have a lot of shooty stuff outside of Skaven. So it can be an interesting option to drop into a generic Chaos that can just stop a lot of like early game teleport shenanigans, because you can chain them way out and they can create just this protective bubble around you. There you go. That's why I like it.
I'm a buyer.
I wish they had more synergy, but I think Eshin right now, you know, there's a couple good things going on in Eshin, but I don't. There's not a lot of like synergy with anything else going on. So, what do you do? But I still like them, even though they have little weird monkey faces. Ninja rats are always cool. All right, that's mine. All right, Doomy, pick number 2, buddy.
I hope you can hear me okay. I've had to take my headphones out, but I'm going to run with Vanguard. Now, they may be contentious whether they're undervalued, but I certainly don't see anyone running them. And at 300 points, they're very easy to leave out. But I think Vanguard are undervalued because no one seems to be taking them. No one seems to be taking them competitively. What they do best is that they're 15 wounds, they're a 3-up base, they're a 10-inch move, they bounce spells on a 4-up, they've got a 5-up against mortal wounds, so they're really, really resilient. They've got an option to pile in and attack twice. And I'm just going to be talking about Vanguard in the generic ensorcelled weapons. So 6 attacks, hit on 3s, wound on 3s, -1 rend, 1 damage, right? I don't like talking about them in synergies with other things because you start adding points values onto them. But what they do really well is they are your sacrificial lamb. Tom and Paul spoke about this recently, that chaff walls are one thing, but what you really need is a unit that you can throw up there that's a threat, that's going to do damage, can take a hit, and keep on punching, Rocky Balboa style. So, with Vanguard, you don't need to chaff them up. You're happy for them to take a punch to the face, and your opponent can't ignore them either. So you put a Mystic Shield on those bad guys, you run them into a forest, they're in a 1-up, they can fight anything. They've still got -1 rend, so they can still go toe-to-toe with the monster with infantry or whatever it is, and can't easily get rid of them with spells. You can't as easily get rid of them with mortal wounds. You really just have to fight them, and that lets your Storm Fiends move up behind and burn everything. So I think Vanguard are an underutilized tool. I still think they could afford a little bit of a points drop, but the other thing we can't ignore with Vanguard is they are amazing models, and you feel good just owning them and putting them on the table.
That's true. I cannot argue with that point. Like, they are some of the most beautiful models GW has ever released. Like, not only that, they have like the character on each one of those guys. I mean, they're each a hero, basically, right?
Yep.
Not only in their actual wounds and capabilities, but like just the look and ornateness of them. But I didn't find them like annoying to paint like I did some of the Zangor, Skyfires and stuff. I thought they were great. So yeah, I agree. I wonder if it's maybe like they are just so expensive. Right. And so is it just like at 300 points, is it just because they cost what they cost? Right. Like, so they might be good for it, but people just go, I don't have 300 points to put in this list.
Yeah. It's a combination. It's not only are they 300 points in game, but they're $1,000 in real life. So when you combine the fact that they're so expensive to buy, they're expensive in points, and then they're also so restricted with their keywords,
Yep.
You know, you're only really going to run them with Everchosen or with Mixed Chaos. I know you can ally them in, but people aren't probably going to drop that sort of money for a arguably costed unit. I think that's another thing that makes them so rare, and I think their rarity also adds value to them, to be honest with you, because how often do you play against Vanguard? I don't know, not often.
Right.
The only person who ever runs Vanguard in my group is me.
Yeah.
So I'll put him on the
Yeah.
table. I've used him in like in my Zinch Force a couple times, right? But yeah, nobody else does. And we've got a regular like Nurgle player as well, who has never even considered putting them on the table.
Yeah, same. There's no one else here in my whole gaming group or any tournament I've been to. I've never seen Vanguard on the table. I'm just going to go get this phone, Vince. All right. So
sure, we'll go to Tom. Tommy, go ahead.
I'm gonna say something probably somewhat contentious, and I'm actually gonna backtrack on something that I've bagged on before. Y'all ready for this?
Dun dun dun. We're ready.
I think that gun haulers for KO may actually be undervalued. Now, I still think they're probably overcosted for what they do.
Get ready for the asterisks. I can see
Okay.
it. It's floating there. It's such a massive asterisk sitting next to these this statement. But okay, go ahead.
Yeah. And so my value or my comment here is simply, so one of the challenges as I've been building KO lists and thinking about how it plays out against other top tier lists, one of the challenges that you're going to have almost always are Fire Slayers. They're going to drown you in bodies. And there's just not a lot you can do to keep them off of you. And part of that, like some terrain can help you with some of your flanks. Like, so when you drop your ship or move it forward, you can hit the middle of their line, you know, and we saw Gary Percival do this very well at the Masters. But what ends up happening is inevitably is they drop off your flanks, then will often charge your main stuff, and it's a bad thing. There's not a lot of ways around that, and so oftentimes you need about a round buffer to survive, to get another round of shooting in. And I think this may be actually the most valuable contribution of the gun hauler, because you can airdrop in Zilfin with your party boat, and then hero phase move and standard move the gun hauler in between and interpose it either off of a flank of your main ship and your main force that's piled out of the boat, which pushes them out another 12 to 15 inches. Let me be very clear about this. For dropping dropping any units out there, okay, anything that can't drop into combat, or you can double if you are deploying in that no man's land when you airdrop, you could hero phase move and then double move it so that it's actually interposing in between your company and the front of their line, so that they have to charge the gun hauler to get to the rest of your troops. And so what you do is you body block all of your shooters with the gun hauler and give all your people an additional round of shooting. And then you hit them with your engine riggers, not first, but then rather after a full round of shooting. 2 full rounds of shooting, basically, off of a flank. And so it's interesting. It actually adds a tactical element that I don't think most people are thinking about. They're looking at the stat line and not thinking about moving it around the table and using it to delay combat with some of the main, huge blocks of troops. And sometimes all you need is one round of not being in melee combat for a KO to clean up with that second round of shooting. So it's something I've been thinking long and hard about, possibly including this in a competitive list. So because I think that there's utility there that we're just not considering. So that's what I would say.
All right, I dig it. Okay, so my next pick. I'm gonna dip into some chaos monsters. It's time to bring out the beasts. Unleash the beast.
So you're gonna tell us about the good news of the Jabber? No.
Well, I think everybody knows about the Jabber Scythe at this point, right? Like that's not a hidden gem anymore. It's been discovered and well polished. Let's be honest. The Jabber Scythe is amazing.
Jabber meta.
At 120, he's redonk. So I don't okay, cool. We're all down for Jabber Scythe. Yes?
Yep.
That's not who I want to talk about.
Good.
I want to talk about a pair of other monsters that I feel have value, but are conditionally valuable.
Yep.
And that is first off the Mutalith Vortex Beast, and that is second off the Chimera. Our old friend, the Chimera, scourge of 8th edition tables everywhere, who I argue still has a high amount of value. Since I feel like he didn't get used forever because of the lack of allies, right? Like there was no easy way to put him into most lists. Yeah, because he couldn't be marked, he couldn't be ally, or like there was just no way to get him in there. Now, so let me talk a couple things about the Chimera. What does he do? Why do I like this guy? So he's 220 for basically a standard monster profile, right?
Yep.
Like whatever. And the advantage to him is this. First of all, he's got a D6 mortal wound spit, okay, with a pretty decent range. That he just point, click, pick something, they suffer a D6 mortal wounds. That's generally pretty good, okay? He's got some rend -3 attacks. That's pretty good. He's also got some big D6 damage, still rend attacks, okay?
Mm-hmm.
This guy has a scary suite of ranged and melee attacks. Now, here's where he falls down, okay? All of his good stuff that I just mentioned, okay?
Scale down as he takes damage.
Scale down as he takes damage, exactly. Yep. That is his weakness, right? Is taking wounds. But here's the thing. Chaos has a lot of scary stuff in it, okay? And this guy's 220. He's 10% of your overall chaos list. If he's the scariest thing in your 2,000 point list, so that he honestly draws target priority, I'm not sure what army you're running. Okay?
Yeah.
But secondly, so you can play him in two ways. You can play him as the stealth dude who flies around the edge while people pick on rightly much more intimidating threats. Things that are getting in their face and trying to kill them. Your characters, your casters, your other monsters, your whatever, right? Like there's a lot of scary stuff that generally becomes target priority in Chaos. And this guy isn't it. Okay? And if he wanders up into range, he can really wreck some face and people will have a bad day. If he gets into things unmolested, he can really reduce a lot of things to rubble pretty fast. The other way to use him is to purposely know that your opponent is going to prioritize knocking down his stats and put him out there to draw a bunch of fire while the rest of your army maneuvers and gets in position. Make him your sacrificial lamb. Who cares? Okay? Like, that would be my argument. I've watched this guy, like, he's actually hit the table quite a few games of mine recently, and I've been very impressed at his ability to screw with my opponent's priorities, right? Because they have, like, once he gets close, it suddenly puts them into hard decision time. Yeah? I would also point out that, like, his weakness is obviously getting shot down before he gets into the, range and fights. Well, Doom did mention that Demon Smith. So if you're going to go generic chaos anyways or whatever,
Yep.
Making sure that their serious ranged unit can't actually shoot him down seems pretty good.
Yep. And Cunning Deceiver for the first turn as well.
Right.
That's value to him.
Yep, exactly. As to the Vortex Beast, he's 200 even. And I love everything about this guy. He's one of the most... Yes, he's one of the most beautiful models ever put out, I think. Like, I particularly love him. Maybe that's just my sense of aesthetic. But he's got a weird tentacle face and he's high-fiving you. He wants to be your friend. I
met some girls like that in Darwin. Yeah.
He has, you're right, he does have a self-heal.
Yep.
He has an interesting suite of attacks that can, he's competent enough in melee for a big monster. I wouldn't call him, incredibly destructive, but he does enough for 200 points. And moreover, he has like a really fun chart that can permanently reduce, they can either do mortal wounds or permanently reduce stats off of enemy units.
Yeah.
And now it's random. That's why every spike hates him, right? But embrace your inner Timmy. like one of the results on that chart makes a unit stupid as per like old school 8th edition stupidity, that's just fun. For the whole game, they're just stupid now. That's great stuff.
Another result turns their feet into hooves, like Beastmen, and that's fun as well.
Exactly. Like he can reduce movement. The crappy one you don't want to roll is reduce bravery generally, because like unless you're running some bravery bomb army, which you're not, that's generally pretty useless. But the make them stupid, reduce their movement, and then just spit mortal wounds at them, which is 4, 5, and 6. That's all pretty useful. Like 5 out of the 6 things on that table are at least interesting. And people don't know how to account for that. That's ultimately what I think about him. Like people do not know what to do with this thing. And yeah, he will just start healing if you don't put, enough heat into him. He's also not incredibly weakened by taking wounds. Like his chart, his little, his magic spit at you chart still does what it does. It doesn't care how wounded he is. If he's at max or 1, he still does that thing. Right? So that's also like his sort of the fact that he doesn't care as much about wounds. Don't get me wrong, his offensive power goes down like normal, but whatever. You weren't picking him as a fighter to begin with. So I say he's very chaos and he's hard for opponents to figure out what to do with. And he's a fun big monster. I have greatly enjoyed putting that guy on the table and just unleashing the randomness. So there you go. That's my pair of undervalued chaos monsters.
Can I do
what
a
else
pair
are we going to spend 200 points on? Sure. Knock yourself out, man. The rules are maybe really more of guidelines.
Yeah, they're not really a pair. I just want to get 2 in before you choose one of them. So the first one is going to be Ungor. Just Ungor for base battle line, especially if you're trying to min-max. So normally what you'd be doing here is you'd be taking 3 units of Marauders or something so you can maximize elsewhere. Because Marauders are really quite good value for their points. They've got a good save. They're 10 bodies to sit on an objective. They'll have a 5-up, put them in cover, yada, 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 yada. But Ungor are generally on a smaller base, on a 20 mil base, and Ungor can run and charge. So they still give you the 10 bodies. They're still going to sit on the objective, but they're movement 6 with the ability to run and charge. So often when you get into that late game and you need to just really quickly block something off or run and jump on an objective, if you've got something with a potential to go sort of 12, 14 inches, especially late game, I often find that you have one character model that's guarding an objective. If you can just numerically get within 6 inches and take that objective, I reckon that's a lifesaver. So 60 points just for your trash battle line units, but may have a real, they can sit on objectives, but then late game they have a real role to play as well. I think it's fantastic. And if you're using those, cheap as battle line just for chaff to die anyways, it doesn't matter if they've got a 5-up or a 6-up, they're going to just die. Like they're dead. It doesn't matter if they're Ungor or not, so you may as well have the ability to run and charge, I think.
No, it's interesting because I agree with you on that. Like, so oftentimes in these objective games, late game, you'll have like a single Lord Relictor or like a single, Iron Jaws drummer, basically like sitting on an objective, right? And if you've got
War Chanters always do it.
Yeah, exactly. Like I use my War Chanters all the time to just hang out. Like they're back there anyways. Why not sit on an objective? Or like a single chariot or something like that. If I have a small number of points, I'll grab like a chariot or something like that out of my allies with my Iron Jaws, like a little cheap chariot, and just use that to sit around. But anyways, the point is that like just having 20 of those guys, no one's going to prioritize shooting those guys. Right? Like as long as they're not in melee, who's coming for them? Who's like, oh, let me get rid of them 20 Ungor. But then if they can just suddenly wheel out, run a good 9-10 inches and then charge, that realistically lets them cover about 16, 17 inches in a turn. Just charge that guy. That Lord Relictor is going to fight you and kill way more of but he's not going to kill you down. Like you're going to body block him off the objective just by number taking, right? Because he'll kill like 3 and then battle shock 1 or 2 more. Who cares? So it's like still win the objective.
A 15, 16 inch sort of objective threat range. And like you say, you might charge in with 10. They're not going to kill anything. You may lose, 3 or 4, lose another 3 or 4 from Battle Shock even, but as long as you've got 3, it's more than one, and you win, and that wins you the game. So, Ungors, and they look better. Like, you're a cooler guy playing Age of Sigmar if you're taking Ungors and everyone else is taking Marauders. Right? That's just the truth.
Let me point out how ridiculous that statement is.
No.
Because up and like a year ago, who was running Marauders? Like, I was running them, but they were also an undervalued unit a year or so ago. Like, you generally did not see them in hyper competitive lists.
You could even say they're undervalued now, still, because I mean, sure, you ran a big block of them and so forth, but just little 10-man units.
Well, I
just
didn't.
for 60 points.
I ran 3 units of 10. Like, I didn't run a big block of them in my list. Now, what I would say is that you're seeing it also in Tzeentch lists. I'm seeing it like the number of Fatesworn lists are running little blocks of 10 as well. At 40 for 200 points, they're a steal, especially because you can mark them and get them to a 5-up save. So like they can get the Nurgle save. So you can have like 40 of them for 200 points that have like a 5-up. Which is not too shabby, all things considered.
Reef Beastman never made a highly entertaining series about a little marauder, though, did he?
It's true.
But there is one about a little Ungor. It's called, what's his name, Vince? Can you remember?
I do remember his name, yes, although I'm not going to say it on this particular broadcast. But yes, right. I do remember. It may have been a word that is a bit more favorable to say in the UK than it is in other parts of the world. So, yes.
So as a counter there, Doom, I would say that I think Marauders fit into that undervalued list, or they did at least at one time. You don't see them. I think the sculpt is the problem there. Most people don't want to run that sculpt, but with the abundance of Blood Reavers and the ability to easily convert them, I think that people don't have an excuse to not run them now.
No,
you're saying
you can use
Marauders.
Acolytes, you can use Reavers.
Yep.
In fact, I even saw, I just bought a bunch for, before I decided to use Ungors, and he'd replaced all of the heads on them with the Hellstrider heads, like the Spartan Mohawk ones. And with the cloaks, the swords, the Spartan, like they look awesome. They look really, really good. So I sort of, that's good.
So Marauders would be my one. The other one, so I'm going to pick one that I think that people are going to find as they may disagree with me. As this is being a contested piece, okay? Because it's very, very rarely that you can point to something in Tzeentch and say that that's undervalued. Especially when it's something that's finding itself already in top tier lists like Change Host.
Oh, here we go. Lord of Change is not undervalued, buddy.
No. The Herald of Tzeentch on foot.
Oh yeah, okay.
And so hear me out here. I don't care about him in Tzeentch lists. Like, let me be very clear. Whatever. I don't care. You can run him in Tzeentch, you cannot. That's not where his value is to me. His value to me is running him as one amongst many in your actual reinforcement pool in Chaos.
Oh, okay. Tell me more.
He's a 120-point summon hero. Okay. And he has you're going to summon him out up to like, 18 inches. He has a once-a-game ability you can trigger where you cast on 3 dice.
Huh?
His base spell is a 9 to cast, and it does a d6 mortal wounds. Okay? And if he rolls a 9 or higher to cast on a spell, he gets to cast another spell. And so for 120 points, I will often have at least 120 or so in my reinforcement pool in Chaos. And and normally I'm going to save that for something like 10 Plague Bearers or something if I want to take a point or hold a point or snake a point or whatever. But sometimes I need to kill something. I need to put wounds on something now. And Chaos is already short on ranged attacks. And what I can actually do, and I did this at NashCon last year, is I would summon him, throw 3 dice at the spell. You have more than and all of them add up. It's not like 3 dice drop the lowest. All of them add together. So statistically, you are like your average is a 9. It's a
10.5.
It's 10.5. Yeah. So like like a majority of the time, that spell goes off. You do a d6 mortal wounds. You get a free cast out of the deal. You can now throw an arcane bolt. So you're going to do a d6 plus a d3 mortal wounds on whoever else within 36 inches of the spellcaster.
Yeah, I mean, it's an average of 5 mortal wounds. Like, on average dice, you do 5 mortal wounds. So you kill a 5-wound hero that has no mortal wound protection.
Which that is your battlesmith for or that is the general or whatever for some, like your general on foot for your three people. Yeah. And so for 120 points in a flex pool that you can use those 120 points for anything else, for a Balewind, for other stuff like that, he's a great piece to sit in your reinforcement pool.
No, that's a very tricky point because it's exactly that. You don't have to have that guy out. He can just be the reinforcement points. And in other games, if it's not useful to do that assassination trick, just don't. Just do something else.
And instead, you could use the points for another undervalued unit, which is the Flesh Hounds, right?
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah,
that's
there's
right.
the transition.
Because
Absolutely.
if you need to get on that objective that's got one guy's on them, you summon your Flesh Hounds 9 inches away. Flesh Hounds reroll charges. So bam, bam, and I'll have you. So Flesh Hounds, Plague Bearers. I mean, Plague Bearers aren't undervalued though, but Flesh Hounds, Plague Bearers, and now the Herald. I think need to be sitting in your summon pool.
Yeah, and
Can we talk about
also
Flesh Hounds for a moment after we're done? I want to talk about Flesh Hounds next.
You go, Vince.
Briefly, what I would say is that you can also fit other things in there, like for that 120 points. Like you can have a Herald on disc, which he has a worse spell, but he has a 16 movement. That's pretty good to have as a tool on the battlefield if you need mobility in that last minute kind of situation. And you can also fit now Pink Horrors. So like for summoning at 120, there are lots and lots of options. Yeah.
Go, Vince. Flesh Hounds.
Flesh Hounds, buddy. I'm all about these guys. The dogs. Who let them out? We all want to know. Well, the answer is obviously Khorne. And Flesh Hounds are really great. I mean, so movement-wise, solid again, above average movement. They're 2-wound models. So you're getting like 10 wounds for these 5 little doggies. They pack, their collars, right? So they can they can unbind. I was going to say dispel, but yes, unbind would be the proper terminology. I love everything about these guys. You mentioned the reroll charges. Sure. Like offensively, they're fine. Right? Like that's what I look at when I see them. Like
they're 4
great
attacks a model, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they're 4s and 3s or something like, or 3s and 4s, one of the other. Either one.
And you're getting 5 of them?
Correct. Yeah. They're not on a very big base. They're on the small cavalry base, right? So like the 60 by 35. And they are eminently, summonable. They're fast movers. I dig them. They're one of my favorite lists that I've talked about before was the Karnak-led Flesh Hound list with the Council of Blood, right?
Yeah.
Hilarious list all around. And it did really well. Like 20 Flesh Hounds, 25 Flesh Hounds on the table. That is a lot of unbinding power all over the place. And then, again, that all became Battle Line because of Karnak, right?
Yeah. I wanted to talk about Karnak a little bit as well, because I think he's undervalued at 100 points, and I don't want to go too much into synergies and this and that, but just his ability to summon a unit of Flesh Hounds once he gets within 8 inches. Well, sorry, he summons a unit of Flesh Hounds, and they need to be placed, I think, within 8 inches of him, but it's not wholly within, and there are no restrictions on how far away from enemy models. So you can run Karnak solo up the table towards that, whatever it is the model you're after, and then as soon as he gets close, you can basically plump Flesh Hound straight into combat with that model. It's a broken summon.
Is it not min-size unit as well? So you could do in any size unit that you summon into combat if you have the points?
I'd have to check the wording on it, but I'm not sure. But
normally it says set up a unit, because if that's the case, like the normal Khorne summon says set up a unit, so you could summon on like the Blood Tithe points, you can summon a max size unit when you do that if you have the points to do it.
Yeah, maybe you could. I'm not sure, but I mean, the thing that just got me was simply the fact that It's not restricted. It's not wholly within. There's no distance requirement from enemy.
Right.
Anything like that. So you can just run him up and plonk them down exactly where you want. Not even in combat with the unit you're specifically after. You could just do that to tie up something else completely unrelated. You know,
And there's
you
no
could
check
put
to
them...
that. There's no dice.
No,
roll.
there's
It
no
just
checks.
happens.
No, it's completely broken. So
Set up a unit of Fleshhounds anywhere within 8 inches of Karnak. The unit is added to your army and cannot move in the following movement phase. Deal. Done.
Yeah,
Done.
it's crazy good.
Yes.
Crazy
And
good.
then-
You could stretch them out. You could do anything.
Yep. And then you've got, so you can conga line them out backwards, even if you need to secure an objective anywhere on the board. But then he's also got his collar, which does D3 mortal wounds, I think, if he dispels. So yeah, he's really good value. I think Karnak, and then just one unit of Fleshhounds. That's 200 points. It keeps 100 points in your summon pool as well. I think that's pretty good. Yeah, I think he's a bit sneaky.
Absolutely, man. I'm a big fan of that goofy 3-headed dog.
And he's only
I've got him.
$22 on the U.S. site. Like, he's not the full price of, like, a lot of those flying cast heroes.
Sure.
Like, the Lord on Demonic Mount is, like, $40. The Corn Lord on Demonic Mount is $50. Karnak is $22. He's sneaking in under the price radar.
Sure. I've still got the old metal one. Like, my Karnak is metal, and what I'll say is that is the most front-heavy, unbalanced model ever because of his 3 giant metal fin-having heads. He's just like if that model tilts on any hill, he's just going boop and falling right over. But yeah, he's awesome. I dig Karnak and the Fleshhounds for those reasons. I totally agree with everything you just said. That is a sneaky deaky play. And again, people do not see that crap coming.
No one's gonna,
Right.
and you're gonna tell them, oh, if this guy gets within 8 inches, he's going to be able to summon a unit of Fleshhounds. They're going to see 5 Fleshhounds, and they're going to think big deal, and then it's going to wreck them. It's just going to ruin their whole game.
I'm going to drop. I would literally set back the points for a max size unit. Just drop them all.
I know you would, Tom. You would make it like the worst day in history for this person. Just absolutely guarantee he never wants to play you again. But you know that's we know that's how you roll.
Yep. Be like, fear the Fleshhound.
Exactly. Yeah, Tom would run Karnak forward and then conga line a unit of 20 of them out and stretch along the entire line and basically just do his Chaos Warrior trick again and just be dispelling all over their casters and stuff. Yeah, that's
max. By the way, that max size unit gets rerolls on their unbind because if they're more than 10 models, they get a reroll.
So what you could do is you could just run your Gore Pilgrims you're talking about. Forget about the Brass Stampede. Put in Karnak. Put all your Fleshhounds in reserve. Run Blades of Corn. Use your Blood Tithe points to move Karnak in the in the hero phase. Then move him in the movement phase, and then charge something, and then bust them out. And
do you know what the hilarious part of this is?
What?
Murder Host is Fleshhounds.
Yeah.
Murder Host is either Bloodletters or Fleshhounds, and I've already thought about this before about combining this with the Murder Host shenanigans.
Yeah, I don't think it'll end up as good, unfortunately, because it's hard to argue with all those mortal wounds. But
no, you do both. No, that's the problem. Is that you do both. When you max out your Murder Host, you max out the rest of it with Fleshhounds.
Gotcha.
And you let Karnak be your general.
Let's move on. Yeah.
Sorry, we're moving from less appreciated to optimized shenanigans.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got a few minutes left. I don't want to go too late, but let's do some lightning rounds. Okay, so just quick rips through. Let's pick one. Let's do 2 quick cycles through. Grip it and rip it. One you like and a few reasons why. Doom, go ahead. What do you got?
Oh, shit. I don't know. Crossbowmen, because they wrecked my face in the last game against Free People. I looked at them. I thought these are a bunch of puffy pant-wearing, flops. And they shoot twice in the shooting phase, and then with the detachment, they shoot twice in the charge phase as well. My charge phase, I should say. And they're not handgunners; they're crossbow instead. And they just absolutely wrecked me. So I think they're undervalued and underappreciated. But maybe that's just my ignorance. I don't know.
Well, it's a good point. Everybody knows handgunners. Very few people respect crossbowmen.
Yep.
Tom, your lightning round. Pick one.
Luminarch. Folks.
No way.
okay, here's the deal. People, like, when was the last time you guys
Is
saw
this even undervalued anymore? Everybody knows the
No,
Luminarch is
everyone
good
is
now.
running one.
Are they
Cam
really?
Con- yeah, my buddy Stormcast. Every Stormcast at Stardrake, Luminarch of Haya. No worries, it's just done and dusted.
Wow.
It's the
So
next
I
thing
have
to be
not
nerfed.
seen this. I have not seen this in the in events. But yeah, what I was going to say was Luminarch, because all that it's bringing to the table, the bubble, because everybody jumps to the party wagon. Everybody jumps to the Hurricanum, and they skip
Hurricanum.
over the Luminarch. And I really think
Yeah.
that Luminarch, man, that thing can do some work.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. If it is undervalued, then maybe it is. But Jesus Christ, it's amazing.
It's ridiculous. Yes, we've talked about it before. I'm sure it'll come up again. I don't even think it's a hidden gem anymore. I think it's a well on display gem. All right, my pick, Way Watcher, buddy. 100-point hero. 5 wounds, 4 up save. Easily, fights in cover it goes to 3 up. Makes 6 shots or makes 3 shots to do 2 damage and can pop up to higher rend. But he can do 6 shots on 3s, neg 1, rend 1 damage. Every 6 he rolls to hit generates another attack. Dude's got like a 30-inch range with his bow. And also if he doesn't move, he gets +1 to hit. So he goes to 2s and 3s.
And what's his point?
By the way, 100 points. And that +1 to hit, if he doesn't move, triggers those extra attacks. Because it's 6 or more.
Yep.
Okay? So this dude has his own built-in buff. Can reach out and touch somebody. In a generic order army, he's fantastic for just ranged firepower.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just like it's 6 neg 1 rend shots, possibly more. It's usually going to end up, if he doesn't move, it usually ends up being, 7 to 9 shots that hit on 2s, wound on 3s, neg 1 rend. At a hellacious range, with a guy who's basically on a 3-up save targeting back at him. He's also got a heck of a movement too. Like, he's plenty fast and all that kind of stuff. Tiny base, hard to lock down, easy to run away. Love everything about him. By the way, his if you actually did run him in some list where he was the general for some weird, stupid reason. He's also neg 1 to be hit and shooting, by the way. Did I mention that? And his command ability is he makes the people within 18 inches of him, the Wanderers within 18 inches of him, also neg 1 to hit in shooting. So, like, he can actually spread out that neg 1 to hit thing. I don't know where you'd ever use him. I don't think Wanderers have any gas in the tank, but it's a good command ability if you ever have occasion to use it. So, okay. He's got that going for him. There you go. That's my first lightning round pick. Back to you.
This may be just like a Luminarch, but Infernal Guard, the Chaos Dwarf base battle line troop. They're a 4-up armor. They're 100 points, 4-up armor save, re-rolling 1s against shooting. So that's awesome. They've got a spite shield, which on a save roll of a 6 reflects a mortal wound. And so if you want something to sit on objectives, they're protected against shooting, which is your main enemy. And if anything comes in to fight them, they can bounce mortal wounds back if, there's no rend. And then also, I think they're a 4 to hit, 3 to wound, -1 rend, or it's the other way around. But they're a baseline troop that has rend, has protection from shooting, a 4-up base, and then also that bounce back mortal wound. So to get all of that in 100 points is insane value, I think.
Dig it. I like it. That's another. I don't think that's well known. And again, it's because of those Chaos Dwarf stuff is just so rare, right? That's the issue. People just don't see it. When you drop out like a Skull Cracker and a Demon Engine and all this nonsense, people are like, "What does all this stuff do? I don't know what any of these things do." So
the jury's out on. Well, my jury's out on Kadai Fireborn, because when you read them initially, you think they're miserable. They've got a 5-up, whatever, but there are all these little rules. And the big thing is they're D3 damage and no rend, but they're 4 attacks, each re-rolling 1. So you kind of go, well, if I have a group of these, if I have 6 of these and I push them in, is it actually going to result in, 5 D3 damage or something like that?
So the answer... So, by the way, on those Kadai, let me be very clear. That's actually not where they shine. Okay? I've actually thought long and hard about them. Where the Kadai shine, they... as a summon blocking tool. So they have a base 5-up save. Against attacks with no rend, they get +2 to their saves. So they go to a 3-up save. So if you summon them onto terrain, to block, like a horde coming forward, you can get them to a 2-up save. And so that they're like what, 120 points, I think. I think they're at that 120 point mark. So they sit in that summoning as that tool that you can deploy in that right situation to block that horde of no Ren troops that are coming and hold them for a very unfortunately long amount of time for the enemy. And if you have a Chaos Sorcerer within range, you can give them reroll 1s on that save.
Nice.
So you could like summon them, and you wouldn't even need terrain, by the way. You could summon them, Mystic Shield them, and if you have that Chaos Sorcerer, give them the free reroll 1s. And suddenly they're at 2-up reroll 1s against those troops. And it's 120 points, as that summoning chip. I think that's where the utility of those of the Kadai Fireborn are.
So is that your second pick, Tom, or what's your lightning round pick this round?
No, that's not my pick. My lightning round pick, I just forgot it.
You talked about Kadai. All right, I'll give you mine.
Go ahead.
I'll let you think about yours. Black Arc Fleetmaster. Black Arc Fleetmaster. You thought you were going to get away with me not talking about that guy? You were wrong. Generic order list or any of the weird. If you happen to be playing one of the weird ones that happens to have the sort of pirate dark elves, 40.5 wound hero. There you go. That's literally all he is. He's just
that he actually averages like 2 wounds in combat as well. So he's actually going to put out a little bit of damage.
Yeah, he's fine.
It's embarrassing.
He has some decent attacks. He's got he's fine. Whatever. He's a 40-point hero. 40 points.
Okay, so I'm going to go a different direction with my pick. I remember what it is now. I'm going to go with the Legion of Death, Death Rattle Battalion.
Okay.
For my Undervalued War Scroll.
Okay.
This is a 110-point battalion that is basically an army in a box. Like it's you can easily get at a 3-drop army. For any of those that were watching the stream today on Warhammer TV, Martin, during Ben Johnson's game, Ben got stomped pretty hard. And so the conversation, just as Ben was losing, just diverted to like, hey, what's a fun death army that people want to run that's not what's losing right now. And it moved on to like Martin was talking about wanting to do graveyard, like a graveyard heavy army. And one of the things that that we started dialoguing about, and I put a list in the chat there, but it's using this Legion of Death, maxing it out with all of your skeletons and your graveyard and stuff like that. And you can pretty easily get to a very competitive 3-drop army that minimizes the slow speed. That's one of the big challenges of Death Rattle is the slow speed. They're getting a hero phase move. They get multiple death saves. They're regenning extra models. Not only the normal models, are regenning extra from the battalion. And you still get like the Vampire Lord on Dragon in that battalion, and you also still get and you can still have a Necromancer in there for the double pile-in. And let me say, you can throw the 160 attacks out from the spears as well from those skeletons, and there is a value just to that quantity of attacks that those 40 blocks are dishing out, which is not insignificant. And so the combination of all of those things makes I would say that battalion a very worthwhile grab for that battalion. And that said, we probably have a Death Rattle book coming on top of all of that. And certainly that is a battalion to keep your eye on. Because if we were to get some extra tools like allegiance stuff in there, man, that thing could take off.
Cool. Rock and roll. Welcome back, Doom.
Thanks. Sorry, my phone died.
That's all right. You're sideways now. He's at it's Dutch angle time. That's all right. Oh, there you go. World Star.
Yeah.
My
sound is shit ass as well, but I'll just get in with two last ones.
Go.
You can't underestimate the Butcher in Duality of Death. He's healing wounds. He's healing wounds from his spells. He's giving stuff +1 to hit. He's just ripping stuff up. But most importantly, the most ridiculed die in Warhammer, the Firebelly. The Firebelly is fantastic in Duality of Death. You get him on there, he's got a fire cloak, he's breathing fire on shit, he's healing wounds. You can't get him off there. He's absolutely glorious.
Nice. Ending with a couple of the fat boys. I dig it. It's funny you mentioned the Butcher. Just like 2 weeks ago, I thought my enemy had a Butcher, and I just kept kept errantly trying to shoot him down. And it never worked. He just kept, healing stuff. And I was like, good Lord, why is this thing not dead?
Yep. Yeah.
So yeah, there you go. That's funny. All right. So that brings us to the end of the show. Doom, thank you for joining us, buddy. It was very good to have you back on. Loved having you. You're welcome back anytime, as well, To all of you out there, thank you very much for watching. We hope we've uncovered some hidden gems and maybe some new units for you to use in your games. As always, sorry about some of the crazy audio and everything being on the road, but we're always happy to bring the show to you. And of course, we'll see you next Wednesday.